Go ahead, Mark.
All right, so first item up, after the land committee, tribal lands would like to get approval to show interest in the Evero property of 2.13 acres of trust property for purchase.
Would entertain a motion to approve showing interest in the Evero Trust property of 1.8 acres.
So moved.
Motion by Anita. Second by Jennifer. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands.
Okay. Next item up is support a letter of disinterest in individual trust property 3314 of 10 acres for a fee patent.
Mr. Chair, I'd make that motion, but normally they bring a letter of disinterest into council so that you have it available to sign at the time that we make the motion, but I will make the motion to approve a letter.
Okay, motion by Anita to approve a letter of disinterest in individual trust property 3314. Second by Jennifer, or you're waving. Seconded by Mike. Any further discussion? See none, all those in favor? Unanimous, I think. Len, are you voting? Well, Len was voting or not. Unanimous.
Yeah, when we do get that letter drafted up and everything, and we will come back in and get further approval on, we'll get the approval of the letter of disinterest like Anita requested and have it for signature at that time.
Okay.
We just wanted to get into to see if that would be interest. The next item up is in individual trust property 4795 and 4401D. 4795 is 49.5 acres. It is in ownership by three brothers. They actually have approached the tribes for purchase to see if the tribes would be interested to purchase. We got two applications of acceptance so far. We're waiting on a third, but when the third one comes in, the tribes would like to look at showing interest in both those properties.
Is there a motion by Bing to show interest in the individual trust parcels 4795 and 4401D? Seconded by Ellie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
The next item up was a potential land exchange for Elmo property for a Big Arm property. At this time, tribal lands would have show disinterest, would like to show disinterest in this exchange.
Motion by Ellie to show disinterest in the Elmo land exchange. Is that good enough title for it?
Good enough.
Second by Jennifer. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Martin? Unanimous.
Next item up was an easement request for Big Arm Town Site to access the tribal road and developing more road to the individual trust, for the fee property. Show disinterest.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Anita, seconded by Bing to show disinterest in the road easement request for the Big Arm private property. Any further discussion? All those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous.
Next item up is to show disinterest in easement request for White Swan Villa to access Cross Tribal Road to the fee property.
Motion by Mike to show disinterest in the easement request for access road in the White Swan Villa area for private property. Is there a second? Second by Jimmy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous?
It's coming up. Next item up, road easement, Bear Hollow Road easement up in Blue Bay. Tribal lands presented and was moved to be a fair market easement needed for that easement access.
Motion by Mike to proceed with securing a fair market value road easement for the Blue Bay property access. Second by Jimmy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Next item up was an easement request up on Browns Meadow Road. The tribal council wanted to show interest about moving forward and showing interest in the property for purchase.
Motion by Bing to show interest in the Browns Meadow Road property. Second by Ellie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous?
Next item up was a temporary road use permit in the St. Mary's Lake area. That was to tribal lands request to show disinterest or deny request as it is a state parcel.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Anita to show disinterest in authorizing temporary road access permit to the state section in the St. Mary's Lake area. Second by Ellie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
The next item that Tribal Lands has for approval is advertising of the former Collins House in the Evero Shalai area at a minimum bid rate of $20,000.
Motion by Bing to advertise the, what was the name of the house?
Former Collins.
Former Collins House in the Evero area, the minimum bid of $20,000. Second by Jimmy. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
And the last item for approval that I need is the property south of Ronan of 240 acres, the disinterest.
To show disinterest.
To show disinterest. Or we can do further discussion still.
Motion by Jimmy to show disinterest in the 240 acre parcel south of Ronan.
Second.
Second by Anita. All those in favor? Bing. Let's see. Let's see, Bing and I are against it and the other 5 are for it. That it?
No, I was just reminded of getting approval for Hot Springs commercial advertisement property.
Motion by Mike to approve the commercial advertisement Hot Springs property. Second by Jennifer. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
The next item that we had was for Brenda Ritchie from MSU Extension to come up and still present about where she's sitting with the additional FERTEP agent and give a further rundown on what she's came up with.
Okay, sounds good. Come on up, Brenda. Sorry about coming into this dark office here when it's so sunny and nice outside.
No worries, and I am smiling. You just can't see, so I am smiling. Thank you so much for letting me come back. I do have a PowerPoint. Oh. Yeah. Okay, all right. So we'll just go through my notes here. So I'm coming back. It's a return visit requested by council for more details into why I was requesting support for an additional agent. As I mentioned, end of May, when I was here with Mark last, my workload has just kind of blown up over the last 3 years. And I'm at a point now where I am actively turning down requests from a multitude of tribal departments. I can do no more by myself. After speaking with Mark, after speaking with my regional director at MSU came forward, Dr. Cody Stone offered to pay 50% of bringing on an additional agent through his administrative funds. If I could get the tribe to come forward with the other 50% of the wages and fringe, so payroll and fringe only. The work that this additional agent would be doing is still funded by FERTEP. So in essence, you would have 2 FERTEP agents. As you'll see throughout this presentation, in order to do the work I already do, I'm constantly writing grants and constantly leveraging funds. And we'll proceed through that process now. Okay. I wanted to give a brief outline of the way extension is set up in all universities across the United States. A state university extension program is typically made up of 4 quadrants. These quadrants are agriculture and natural resources, positive youth development, any education for youth falls under positive youth development, community development, and family consumer science. And MSU follows that model. We have 4 quadrants that we work in. Right now, I have active programming in all 4 quadrants. So you'll see throughout my presentation that many of the activities that I do cross quadrants. They check boxes off for work done in all 4 areas. I am excited to announce I received permission this last week to say that our 2022 FERTEP grant RFA has been approved. All 4 tribes that currently have FERTEP grants were awarded in full our request. So I am excited that I have a job for another 4 years and then we will rewrite grants again at that time. In addition to that, going on right now, just with the FERTEP grant, I had hoped when we wrote it that they would allow me to request that additional funding for another agent, and they did not. The amount of money we were allowed to ask for remains the same as we've asked for, I believe it's the last 2 grant cycles. So there was no increase in funding. They also made the grant competitive. So across the United States, we now competed against universities, the African-American colleges, and Indian colleges as well. So it is 100% competitive and with no increase in funding. In addition to this, I wanted to let council know that this is kind of just like a little side trail. There are 2 professional development trainings coming up for the FERTEP. One was planned just within this last month, And I wanted to be transparent in letting council know that I am unable to attend this one that was kind of last minute. However, it is my intention to attend the one that we usually have in October. I did reach out to Trent Tigerstrom out of, perfect. My apologies. It's coming. I did reach out to Trent Tigerstrom, who is one of our leads in FERTEP, and just asked why all of a sudden on June 1st did I get a call to go to a training that's in July. I was already booked and unable to reschedule for that time. He indicated that this particular professional development for FERTEP agents was something his FERTEP grant had committed to providing, and not necessarily one that the rest of us were aware of. So I did want to make sure that council was aware, as I know in the past, agents have chosen to not attend, and I wanted to verify that I will be attending the fall professional development. There we go. So to the right, can you guys see that? Can you guys see the PowerPoint? All right. So to the right is my little diagram of our 4 quadrants of extension. To the left, under 1, 2, and 3, that is the FERTEP RFA. That is the scope of work by which typically my work should always fall under. Yep. What I did there was take, here's extension, here's the requirements for extension, here's the requirements for my RFA, and then I took the tribal resolutions that you guys have indicated are your priorities. So I've created this trifecta of work. If I've built my base correctly, I have MSU and I have FERTEP working together. I should always be working on what the tribe wants me to work on. Next. All right. On this slide here is where I started to break down, per your request, the activities that I do and how they fall into the FERTEP guidelines. These programs here have been specifically financed or paid through, in part, through the FERTEP money. On average, the cost of having a FERTEP agent is between $75,000 and $80,000. My annual FERTEP money is $90,000 total. So after I pay for an agent, I have anywhere from $15,000 to $10,000 to provide programming. That is why we leverage. On our next slide, am I going too fast? Okay. On my next slide, I wanted to show you activities that are being done 100% through other leveraged funds. These activities are happening here on the Flathead Reservation because there is a FERTEP office to house them under. So for example, one that I'm super excited about right now is our Drones in Agriculture project. That is a partnership with the U of M, MSU, and the tribe and our local school system. But that doesn't happen if FERTEP hadn't have been here. He had been unable to make the connections 2 years ago. We started this process pre-COVID, and it took us a little while to get our foot back in the door. We now have a very active youth drones and ag program. So these are some of the examples of programming happening directly because of the leveraging that I do. I currently have 12 active grants in the office, down from 15 at the end of 2021. By the end of summer, I'm hoping to wrap up a couple of others, which should bring us to 9 or 10 actively running congruent grants at the same time. I wanted to provide a monetary look at what the office has provided. You will see I was excited last night to be able to put on the next 4 years worth of work. In total, since I started in 2009, we have brought approximately $2.6 million in activity, support, payroll, and financial support through activities to the Flathead Reservation. When I met with Mark this last fall to say, as I wrap up, our current grant, we're getting ready to receive the new RFA, which did come out at the end of the year. What is it that lands would like from extension? Items A through E is a continuation, but an increase in workload in those areas. Items F and H are things that I do when I have time. And G is something that both agents would work on together. By bringing in this new agent, it would allow me to answer Mark's request for further activities in A through E. Right now, the challenges, as I've stated, is my workload is full, my plate is complete. I cannot take on any additional work. I've also been in search of an office manager for assistance as well. The next slide here is basically the rundown of what I've already shared with council. I am in active conversation right now with the Tribal Health Community Department, working with Chelsea Kleinmeyer and Joe Derglo. They are very interested in perhaps helping to fund the portion for the additional agent, provided that some of the work then also be guided towards health, mental or physical health protocols and or activities. For example, the gardening program they have going on right now. That would not be happening through my office, except that I have a coworker who is the Missoula County Extension Agent horticulturist who has been coming up to run that program, because I'm not able to take on another 40-bed garden bed program right now. Without Patrick Mannion coming up to do that, I would have had to tell Tribal Health no. In talking and meeting with Chelsea and Joe, it was kind of like, what else do you do? And I said, well, if you're talking about teamwork, I teach gracious spaces, I teach real colors, I teach mental health courses, I teach. And they're like, can you come do that for us? And my answer was, well, yes, if I have another agent, because I also have a responsibility to the lands department and to agriculture and youth development and community development as well. And that, in short, was a very fast speed through of why I am requesting tribal financial support in bringing in another agent. And I'm glad to, I know this was a really word-heavy document. I didn't put in any pictures, but I'm glad to talk about any of my programming that piqued your interest. I'm very proud of the programming and how far we've come in the 3 years that I've been the agent.
What do you know about dog kennel?
My brother is actually a licensed dog kennel dog trainer person. If we're talking about dogs, now this is a euphemism for training something else, I don't know. And I'll bring him in to talk to you. It's all about connections, and I've got connections.
Oh, no, I'm just trying to connect another need where we need to have a dog pound. We need to take care of animals here, and so it's animal husbandry. It's training. It's learning how to care for animals, and that's part of a program. Maybe it's a win-win where we connect your program into running and operating like a humane society facility.
Well, there's this beautifully chained in fenced area right outside my office that currently is just used to store vehicles that I would love to have access to. My hope had been someday down the road, my rainbows and unicorns, to request that area as an outdoor educational center. But if you want me to commit a certain portion of it to animals and critters, I'd be glad to do that too.
Have you had any conversation with Jordan Thompson in our food sovereignty program?
Yes, I spoke with him. What day am I on? I'm on Tuesday. I spoke with him last week, Thursday or Friday. And he and I have chatted several times and then just needed to get through the school year until he was back home. And I will be meeting virtually with his team on Wednesday, July 6th to kind of present what we do. We have had conversations surrounding the work with the meat processing plant and the work going forward there. I was the one that helped connect with Chris Roper and brought him in. He was the one that designed and wrote all the grants for the Cherokee Oklahoma Nation, Pakwa. Am I saying? Yeah. And so I helped bring him in to Janet and to the producers that are part of that interest group. Patrick from Missoula again also helped put together a meat producing plant tour that was open to anybody who wanted to attend. So he and I did that and took Vern Claremont did go with us and look at the meat processing plant that is in Missoula that the high schoolers run, which is then tied back into my partnerships with our local FFA leader, Casey Lunsford, and the work that he's doing. I currently have a poultry project that we are looking to expand into individuals and a community impact through the school system. And, but that's a whole nother story. But yes, I have worked on in those areas with Jordan in regards to meat production, food production, fruits and vegetables. How do we process it as fresh and ready to go in a safe manner? How do we preserve it for times when are we going to can it, preserve it, freeze dry it? And what is the process and how does that look? We also talked briefly about creating jobs out of that and using Job Corps to be able to facilitate bringing in an economic impact as well as addressing food insecurity and creating food sovereignty.
I would like to also add that she is actively right now doing a gardening class that we actually have 4 or 5 individuals out of the lands department that are attending it. And they're learning just like the basic steps and starting of gardening. They received some gardening boxes and fill dirt for it. And they've all started their home garden project, garden boxes this last week. So we've been actively doing that with Brenda and MSU Extension for the last couple of years. The COVID did strike us down on that a bit, but we did do it once before where we had about 12 tribal members, 10 tribal members that were involved. It did dwindle a little bit, but I think 7 ended up completing the course, getting garden boxes. Ruth Sweeney was one, myself was another. So she does a lot of outreach education like that for us. She provides us with a bunch of MSU Extension flyers and information packets for weed management or anything for our ag producers. MSU, the newsletters she gets out, we put in our packets, we do mailings with her to just get more information out to our ag producers. So she is a great resource for the lands office, but if we could get another Brenda in there to assist would be beneficial for all departments.
Brenda, what is the requirements for an agent?
You mean as in a job description?
Yes.
So job description that we're looking at putting together is focused on horticulture and agriculture with a certain percentage of the work also including youth education. Right now, it would mean bringing in someone with more expertise than myself to continue these conversations with meat production and agriculture crops. So the job description would focus in those areas as we're going to look for somebody with that particular background. For those of you that might not be aware, my background is early childhood and youth education. And so I do tease Mark. I'm like, if you want to know how to grow children, I'm your girl. If you want to know how to grow a cow, I'm going to do my darndest, you know, but bringing someone in who has that formal training and background is what the job description is going to focus on. When I talk with Joe, Mr. Derglow, sorry, he's like, well, how does that fit into us? they're not interested in the ag person. I'm like, no, but we both work under FERTEP. Here's all the things we can offer. There is some crossover. So for example, this new agent would be taking over a reservation-wide gardening program with the intent to expand on that. They would have that knowledge, whether it's working with lands department on raised beds or working with tribal health to bring in more raised beds or in-ground gardening, whatever that looks like is up to the tribe. But having someone with that expertise, with that project off my plate, then that opens me up to say, would you like mental health first aid for adults who work with adults? Would you like mental health first aid for adults who work with youth? I'm certified to give both of those trainings. At this time, they're not on my agenda. So we're kind of dividing and conquering instead of me trying to pick and choose who receives services from Extension. And I'm happy to bring in, once the job description would be formalized, I'm happy to bring that in so that that can receive approval as well.
Any questions from council? Seeing none, no questions? Okay.
Last time I was
I have a question.
Well, go ahead, Anita.
I'm sorry. My question is, Brenda, in all the other knowledge, I guess I've got of other agencies, other Indian Extension offices, has there ever been where the tribe has kicked in for a position? I know that there's been a lot of positions lost within FERTEP. And I'm sorry that you, excuse me, you guys have got to compete. You know, we go in every year at IEC and ask for them to have a permanent funding so that you guys don't have to go through this every year. But I was just wondering if any of the other tribes, you know, take and subsidize their extension.
yes and no. And what I mean by that is, in the state of Montana, to my knowledge, there is not this direct partnership relationship. I do know that there are 2 agents at the Fort Belknap extension at FERTEP office. One is Ag and 4-H, and the other is Family Consumer Science, FCS. And how they are paying for that part-time FCS agent is money through, I believe, BIA funding that comes to the tribe that the tribe chose to then reroute to pay for this additional agent. To my knowledge, this setup that I'm asking for here has not been done in Montana. I am not aware, and I don't want to speak for the other states because I'm not familiar with how they fund their FERTEP offices. I think that was the uniqueness of Dr. Stone being willing to come forward. That is how they operate the county programs. The counties come up with basically 50% and MSU comes up with 50% from their budget line items. County agents are permanent and sustainable because they're not on grant funds. So that gets them some additional perks. They can become tenured. They're required to continue education. There's some other benefits to having a permanent, sustainable position in partnership in that lens between the county and MSU. I'm hoping to be able to build that relationship with the tribe and MSU. And eventually, you know, heaven forbid, should we lose FERTEP, you guys would still have an active MSU extension office.
So you mentioned that you had talked with Joe Durbo in regard to tribal health. Did he say at any time what they could maybe pitch in, like a percentage, or, you know, what we would have to figure out to, if we could cost share in some way?
I do not know who he spoke with on his end. I know I was working with him and Chelsea. And they felt like through tribal health, they could do the 40,000, which is what my request was. And that they were going to help formalize the job description. So if there was conversation going outside of that, I'm not aware of that. I'm willing to talk to whoever, whenever, you know, I could take 2 more people. If we want to find 2 more people, I'll make that happen too. But so I don't know, Anita, I'm sorry.
I know that the county's a little different than us, you know.
Yes.
Our Hellgate Treaty in Article 5 states there'll be an agricultural school provided to our tribes.
Okay.
Maybe we need to put pressure on USDA and others. I had to dig out my pocket treaty.
So to clarify, do I have approval to continue working with tribal health in seeking that funding?
Well, not only that, I think you should work with Jordan. I think the food and sovereignty program is a good match too. And
Okay,
I don't know if there's, you know, I know you work with Virgil at the college, but I don't know, if there's a way to pull that extra funding from multiple sources, Brenda, you know, it might be easier to
Okay.
pull it off.
okay,
So the more asks you make to the different departments, programs, tribal affiliates, that's the better off you'd be able to get that 50 grand to make the match. Now, I'm assuming that he's committed to that for the term of your next 4 years, or is that just,
that was my
Image.
understanding. Again, nothing's in writing yet.
okay,
And so we wouldn't move forward without final approval from council and department heads and the financial department as well. I just wanted to come back because I'd given you my
oh yeah,
word to
absolutely,
come back and present what I would have presented last time.
appreciate it. Appreciate your good work, Brenda. We would benefit from more of you, there's no doubt. Any other comments from council? Okay, thank you, Brenda. Thank you for
Right.
coming in.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Council, for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Mark.
And I'm glad Brenda was able to come back in and give a further update on where she's at, and what she's been working on. So thank you so much and enjoy your guys' afternoon.
You too, thank you. So one last item, we can power through it or take a quick break. How do you want to do it? Power through, okay. Come on up, Julie. Hey, we were just talking about Jason Kajun.
Oh, I just bought 3 boat hats, Kajun Boats. That's the logo on it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Derek, my son said we could be matching nerds. Anyway, thank you so much. I apologize, council, for an inappropriate process. I was made aware of this grant at the midnight hour, and so I got on the agenda. Jennifer got me on the agenda to speak with you briefly. At that time, I wasn't aware that the deadline, I knew it was summer, but I wasn't aware it was like mid-July. And I don't know if Natural Resources is doing anything with the America the Beautiful grant.
The only, Mike Durgel came in and
Mhm.
they are putting in for a grant funding
Okay.
request
Okay, they are,
related to climate change.
okay. There are a few, and I don't know what Mike's connections with the US Fish and Wildlife Service, if he's been in conversation with them. or not. But we have through Wild, and they're interested in funding something ambitious. And what my interest from supporting Terry Tanner at the Native Lands and Wilderness Council 3 different times in Alaska, Mexico, and Spain, and convening indigenous land managers from around the world is that the voice for climate change, we're more powerful when we're together. And that's really what this is looking at. And so I just want to know if you're interested. If you're not, I'm going to bless and release this because I've got projects. I'm just doing this on the side because I'm interested in supporting climate change efforts. And I'm a trustee for the Wild Foundation now. And so that's how I end up in all these conversations with folks doing, really good international conservation work. So I just wanted to come and let you know there's a very intense deadline to see if you're at all interested and to communicate that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service would support this. They're the liaison for tribal initiatives. And if you do not want to, then I'm ready to, I'm just doing this on the sideline because I think it's really important. And it seems like of all the tribes in the lower 48, I don't know what's going on in Alaska, that we're maybe one of the most well poised to do something substantial. And I think it needs to be substantial because we're kind of at the midnight hour. So, so I thought, thank you, Jennifer. I was just going to drop some packets off just as kind of a primer, to get you guys thinking about, why do we need this to protect 30%? We really need 50%, thinking about carbon sinks. And so it's just a bunch of information, just kind of bullet points for you to, for those of you, I know Tom knows all of this, but for those of you who haven't been in the conservation conversation, there are some really important things that need to happen, So that's why I'm here. I apologize for the really poor font that my friend put this in. It's like, what is that? Renaissance font? So it was
It's
poorly
kinda
put
like-
together at the last minute, and I should have opened it
It looks
before
kind of Gaelic to me,
Is it Gaelic?
I think it's Scottish, yeah.
Before I printed it, it's like, what is that, an M or a symbol? So I'm sorry, I told her.
Start talking Gaelic here
Yeah,
in a little bit.
I told her, I said, can you just put me together a very basic, carbon, issues about carbon and why biodiversity is so important and where we're at in the United States. And now I've been given 2 numbers, Mike. So I was told that we were at 12% protected. Then I was told we were at 19% protected. So not protected enough, Mike. So we got a ways to go. And as you know, the Biden administration has embraced 30 by 30 as a target. And that's, one of the reasons this initiative came forth. But we also know that it's not enough, but it's a compromise that people have come to. So at these international gatherings, the IUCN, people are embracing 30 by 30 and hoping that if people say, okay, then it's not too hard to move them to the other 20%. So I'm sitting in on these phone calls with all the folks in conservation communities. I'm part of the Nature Needs Half committee. I'm one of 2 Indigenous voices on there. And I did mention last time that, we're stewarding 80% of the biodiversity left in the world. And so rather than be a sideline, which we were at the World Wilderness Congress, except for the last one, we kind of met on the side, but where did everybody, all the participants were at our gatherings? And so people are interested in what we have to say. And I'm interested in coalitions because I think a single tribal voice isn't enough. And I don't know if NCAI or, I'm not in your guys's circle to know what people are doing. I'm not hearing about anything. There's Indigenous Environmental Network and some NGOs that are doing things, but something much broader and larger needs to be done. So that was the idea with the Native Lands Council. And then when we were going to be in India, COVID hit, and so we haven't convened since then. So I did bring Mr. Tanner with me last time to kind of try to talk about that, but you know, we're stronger together. And so that was the idea for this proposal, but I am just here to say, I will leave you alone. If you're interested, and get in touch with me. There, you know, there is a looming deadline. I'm willing to work with folks on it, but you know, I can certainly let it go and keep doing my other contracts, my other contract work. So this is just, you know, from my my service to the Wild Foundation that I support, and in supporting an Indigenous voice in the mainstream conservation dialogue, which has been woefully absent. So
It's been great
yeah.
work you've done, Julie. Really appreciate it.
well, so
Is this something, have you had any conversation with the Whisper Camel Means on?
no, I haven't. I've visited with, you know, the only thing I've done with Whisper, and I need to get on the agenda again because we did finish our little film. It's a 9-minute film that showed in France and then in Scotland at COP26 on the tribe's conservation record. So we did like a 3-minute teaser or something on it, just to have an Indigenous voice there. So, but I haven't talked to Whisper about it.
That's right.
But I'd certainly be happy to, and
Sure.
with the tribal scientists that we have.
Yeah. Martin has a question. Go ahead, Martin.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Julie. Yeah, I think that we're in a really weird time of tribes not taking as much action as we should be. You know, I know there are a lot of issues out there that Indian country face, but nothing as severe as climate change. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, we need to do more. And just hopefully, you know, we can definitely do it together and get as much of this money as possible or funding as possible, because yeah, I mean, that conference, you know, the Alaska tribes and like the Arctic tribes and the Canadian tribes, it's scary what they're talking about. Just everyday life is completely changing, and because we're not seeing it, it's not real to us. So yeah, I fully support what you're trying to do, and let's figure out how we can kind of do it, you know, as one good strong voice. So thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I think a collective voice from Indian country is much more powerful than regional or individual voices if you want to impact policy. And, you know, the time to do that is right now. And I know Biden's agenda has gotten sidetracked because of the war and the January 6th committee and, you know, the economy. And so unfortunately, his climate change agenda and movement got kind of sidetracked, but I think it can get back on track. And so that's why I was supporting a coalition. I think it's still important. I don't know if anyone else is interested in doing that, but maybe I'll just leave it at that. And if you guys want me to do anything, you've got my email.
Jennifer, go ahead, Jennifer.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for bringing this information to us, because you know, the world of conservation is not my specific background. And I was really pleasantly surprised and shocked that, you know, that Indigenous people are worldwide a really powerful force in protecting biodiversity. But, you know, knowing the extent of that was really impressive. But also I know how fragile our communities are with dealing with lots of other issues.
Right.
And, you know, all of the issues that you said, plus, you know, the pandemic and, you know, all of these other issues. And I think we can't, you know, if we have the opportunity to leverage additional funds to protect the environment and to, you know, be an even more powerful force for conservation, I think we should do that. And I think it's one of the issues that there can't be enough resources dedicated to it, because everything depends on it. I mean, who would we be if we didn't have a place to live on? I mean, we would. So I think it's, you know, I'm really grateful that you brought this to our attention, and that you do have the connections that you have that I think are really unique and really powerful, and would enable us to help protect the environment and help other tribes. And, you know, I think it would be a really good, something to invest in. And I appreciate that you're willing to do it and brought this to the tribal council.
You're welcome. And
Yeah.
you know, the tribe does have a good track record in many, because of the World Wilderness Congress. We have networks with Native people, Indigenous people all over that are doing amazing things. I was thinking of the people in the Congo, the Maasai who work on the Maasai Mara, you know, the Yanawawa, the Kayapo in Brazil, the Seri in Mexico. I mean, we've made some really powerful and strong connections through that with other Indigenous people who are really safeguarding that biodiversity. And, you know, on some of the largest contiguous rainforests left in the world. So we have those connections, and Terry and I have been personally invited down to Kayapo territory. I'm probably not going to go. You got to paddle and hike and everything else to get in there for several days. But those gatherings are powerful, and a united voice. I'll just end with that we are stronger when we are more than a single voice. And so I will leave you with that. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys. And now I will feel like I have done what I needed to do as a yaya, you know, for my grandkids, that I'm still trying. So I will feel good about that. So thank you for being gracious at the end of probably a very long day.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I think the people of the world they owe Indigenous communities a huge debt of gratitude for so many reasons, and this is one of them. And I don't think, and maybe they'll never give us credit for that, but the world owes us a debt of gratitude for being such good stewards of the land.
They do. Maybe we need to do some more PR about that. Okay. Lemlep, you guys have a good afternoon.
I'm left, Julie. Thank you. Okay, what else do we have? Is that it? See you in Missoula tomorrow? Oh, no, we'll see you at Lake County. Yeah. Animal shelter for 3 of us. 4 of us. Okay. Okay. We will adjourn. At 4:30. Motion, adjourn.